Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture.
And I'm Andy Murray from WhatCulture, and today I'm going to tell you all about Zack Ryder's new trademarks and what they could mean for his future, and I'm also going to tell you Jerry Lawler's comments on that quip he made about Akira Tozawa on Raw.
Plus, No Way Jose shoots on his former employees, and the final opponent for Chris Jericho's wrestling career has been revealed. This is the news.
It's Vanguard 1. Anyway, we're going to kick things off by talking about the Zack Ryder situation. He was obviously let go from WWE as part of the Black Wednesday releases on the 15th of April. But he has since registered or filed to register a couple of trademarks. Filed on the 21st of April, he is seeking the terms Internet Champion, remember that back in the day, and Always Ready. The Always there has a Z because his name begins with a Z. I figured that out on my own, and I hope you did as well. But he's filed these things, and the interesting thing about them, I mean, I guess the Internet Champion thing is pretty interesting in itself, but other than that, the attorney he used for these things was one Michael E. Dawkins, who is the same attorney used by a number of AEW wrestlers with their own trademarks. He's been used extensively by that roster since the promotion came to life. So immediately you look at that and you put two and two together, like me, and you get 28. But you know, it's going to get people talking. It's something that a lot of people have pointed out already. I think that it would make a lot of sense for Zack Ryder to slot into somewhere like AEW. So many reasons for this, right? He's good friends with Cody. Cody posted that lovely tribute to him when Zack was released just the other week. Big thing on Instagram, paid great tribute to his pal there. But also the YouTube thing, right? So we had the, what was it? Z True Island, Long Island True Story Z.
Something like that, yeah.
The series he had on YouTube. They got him really ridiculously organically over and made him like this surging star all on his own back pretty much. Who did the exact same thing? The Young Bucks, the Elite. Being the Elite is the reason this promotion exists in the first place. So they go together extremely well. The Internet Champion thing is something that would make a lot of sense now that the only content that Zack Ryder can really make is stuff from home on the internet. I'm all for this. I think it is a tremendous thing if it does indeed happen. Maybe we're looking into it a bit too much, but who knows?
Seems like AEW are just slowly taking over YouTube, aren't they? Being the Elite, and they signed Matt Hardy, they've got the Dark Order and the Exalted One, and now they're presumably going to get Zack Ryder. Yeah, for all the reasons you pointed out there and more, AEW does seem the most logical place for someone like Zack Ryder to go. It strikes me, I don't want to keep harping on about this, and I don't want to draw comparisons between TNA and AEW, but it's akin to TNA when they just would pick up all the WWE cast-offs, except for the fact I have quite a lot of faith in AEW now, considering what they've done with Jack Swagger, considering what they've done with Dean Ambrose, what they've transformed them into in AEW, that they can just take all the WWE cast-offs and go, yeah, here's how you meant to book them. Like, I'm not saying that main event championship match between Hager and Moxley was a bit crap, if I'm honest. But everything other than that, they've done perfectly. So yeah, why wouldn't you want to pick up people like Zack Ryder and hopefully Rusev?
Yeah, it's not like they're picking up guys like Orlando Jordan and immediately pushing them to the moon like TNA with. Junior Fatu is one that I always go to, even though I loved Rikishi back in the day. Yeah, man, like, you're not, like, if someone could be an asset to your business and you can use them to make money, you should never sit there and go, well, they used to be in WWE and the internet might not like it, so I'm not going to sign this guy. Like, you know, like a guy like Zack Ryder has a history of getting over in this way in the past. We saw it years ago, all those years ago. He's a guy that a lot of people still have a lot of fondness for. And yeah, man, like, if there's money to be made, you should make that deal, regardless of whether they're coming from WWE or the Indies or Japan or Guatemala, wherever the hell they've come from. If they can make money, if they're going to be an asset to your business, you sign them up.
Instead of Zack Ryder being All Elite, you could have All Elite have become AEW Woo.
AEWZ. There's so many options. So many options.
I know it's early on a Monday. Right, let's talk about another person who was released, of course, on that awful day, Black Wednesday, WWE releases. No Way Jose. No Way Jose. No Way Jose, well, he has continued the tradition of shoot season. It's still going on despite lockdown and social distancing and all that. He posted a photo over the weekend of a new t-shirt he has up at Pro Wrestling Tees. He posted it with the caption, "Last pic I posted before the news. Gotta laugh sometimes. Get the new shirt and help me get money, like at Sasha Banks." And it's a photo of him wearing a mask backstage, I do believe, at Monday Night Raw, with the phrase, "I'm just here so I won't get fired." An homage, of course, to Marshawn Lynch. And the fact that he was, along with many others, constantly travelling back and forth because he was so bloody dedicated to Monday Night Raw, that he would make that trip despite all the dangers inherent in that, and then he still got released.
Yeah, poor fella, man. Poor fella. I kind of like this approach from Jose, right? He just seems like he's having a bit of fun. He says, "Hey, I gotta make some money, guys. Come on, there's bad stuff going on. There's not a lot of ways to get some cash in." I like this a lot. Good for him. Like, we always say this, right, when people get out of WWE. We said it with Brody Lee, right? Let the frustration out or whatever. He had that little line about Vince being an out-of-touch old man who forgot about him or didn't believe in him. After that, once you get beyond that, it gets a little silly, and we've spoken about this before with the Vince McMahon parodies on Dynamite. These people who have been frustrated and held back and had their creativity stifled for years and years and years are entitled to that release. That's all he's doing here, man. He's having a bit of fun. And you know what? Like, No Way Jose is really interesting. He's going to be a fun guy to follow, I think, on the indies, because he has an indie background. Like, a lot of people don't know that. Like, he's not just a straight-up performance center a product. He has a track record on the Southern Indies in particular. I have no idea what he's going to do next, and that is so much fun because he's already said he's ditching the gimmick. Time to find out, man, if he's like going to be like a really good full-time, fully formed performer, or if perhaps, WWE was the length of his abilities. I'd like to think that he's capable of more. I have faith in him. I can't wait to see what he does. It's going to be fun.
Exactly. No word on whether or not his conga line was released with him, but regardless, along with all the other WWE releases, support them in any way you can. Go and get the t-shirt, Pro Wrestling Tees, and you can find the link on his Twitter, which is, at least for now, his handle is still at WWE No Way Jose.
It is indeed. Let's talk about Jerry Lawler.
Do we have to?
Yeah, I know. The 13th of April episode of Raw, that was 2 weeks ago. Jerry Lawler. It was a match between Akira Tozawa and Austin Theory. Akira Tozawa did his signature senton that he likes to do quite often. Jerry Lawler referred to it as a Ramen Noodle Moonsault, and for reasons that I hope would be pretty obvious, that caused quite the stir. Jerry has finally addressed this. He was talking on his latest episode of the Jerry Lawler Show podcast, and he said basically that he'd said this thing as like a setup for Tom Phillips or Byron Saxton to come in and go, "That's not a thing, Jerry, what are you talking about?" Kind of to make him look like a fool, right? He says here that he's referring back to the likes of Bobby Heenan and Jesse Ventura, who'd make jokes of themselves all the time by saying something straight up like incorrect or inaccurate or whatever, and the babyface commentator going, "Don't be stupid, you idiot, that's not a thing." So he talks about it a little bit here. He says that basically, if he was there with Michael Cole or Jim Ross, they'd have had the chemistry with him to know what he was doing and fill in and say, that's not a move. But because he hasn't been working with Byron and Tom as much, they don't have that chemistry, and that's why they didn't acknowledge it. He also harks back to his time working with Mauro Ranallo on SmackDown. He says when Mauro would quote like a Japanese move, for example, that he didn't know the name of, he would think that Mauro was making that up. So he'd flip it around and stuff. It is what it is. Jerry Lawler's words are what they are. A lot of people are going to have a lot to say about this. Adam Wilborn, what do you think?
It took him 2 weeks to come up with that excuse. What is there, like a delay on the excuses book being sent from Amazon because of all the current conditions? What a load of bollocks. I'm not having it. I'm sorry. They probably didn't cut across you, Jerry, because you say stuff like that all the time. I'd almost guarantee off air as well.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the reason, is it?
Hey,
and also,
man.
Don't say like, legends that you always used to get things wrong. Saying, look at that, Marty Jannetty has dived through the barbershop window is one thing, right? Which is blatantly obvious with a little nod and a wink of, look, I know that what's actually happening here, but I have to sort of cover for my character. And then just saying something straight up racist.
I think, like Jerry Lawler's. I wasn't at all surprised when this came out because Jerry Lawler is 70 years old, sorry, he's in the product of a different era and all this stuff. But at the same time, I think you got to be aware of the world around you, man, and you've got to realize that, or like even if you don't do it at the time, you got to realize afterwards that you saying a Ramen Noodle Moonsault for a Japanese wrestler is going to upset some people, and regardless of whether that upsets you or not, and obviously we're gonna get a bunch of dopes now going, PC Brigade and all that garbage, but. Man, you gotta be aware of what irritates people and what is going to ruffle feathers of people in different groups and so forth, and you've gotta say, I was wrong, I'm sorry, I messed up, I won't do it again. That's how this thing works. I hope he doesn't do it again, because I'd rather not hear lines like that.
Exactly. It's not like we heard that and went, oh my God, this is so out of character for Jerry Lawler. And two, we've been asked about this when people ask us questions and talked about this in the past. I just don't think it works having Jerry Lawler, especially right now with what's going on. But, going forward, I just don't think Jerry Lawler as a character works on Monday Night Raw anymore. It's sad to say, but I think it's true. Yeah, and
he, like you touched on there, he's 70 years old and not at the moment, man. Not while everything's going on. No. Maybe take care.
Exactly, and... he will forever be one of the voices of the Attitude Era, but I just think it just doesn't work right now, and it's only going to get worse, in my opinion. But anyway, let's talk more a little bit about ending careers and Chris Jericho. Now, don't panic. We're not saying that this is going to happen anytime soon, but it appears to have been revealed on social media who Chris Jericho's last ever match is going to be against, or at least who Chris Jericho hopes it's going to be against. Lance Storm is the name who should pop into your head, because he was asked about it on Twitter just yesterday by Alex Ware, who was he was answering some questions on Twitter. Alex asked, I know you're downplaying another match, but is it true Jericho wants his last match to be against you to bookend his career? Hope you are, Lance. Stay safe. Love from the UK. Represent, Alex. And Lance Storm replied, we've both talked about doing that. So it would appear that, considering Chris Jericho's history with Lance Storm, that is what he would love to finish off his career with, which I would be totally for. Lance Storm, if you've watched any matches, like when he just pops up over WrestleMania weekend over a few years ago, last time I saw him, he's still in phenomenal shape, and despite what Stone Cold may have told you during the invasion and all that bollocks, he is so talented. There's also that clip that you may have seen doing the rounds on Squared Circle recently, when they chuck the streamers in or whatever. His reactions are still unbelievable. He just goes like, caught it, like that. Last bout between Chris Jericho and Lance Storm took place at ECW One Night Stand 2005, where Storm defeated Jericho. But for me, last match of Chris Jericho's career against Lance Storm, not too bad.
Yeah, it would be like a really nice way to send his career full circle as well, because if you look at, and I'm not saying that this is a complete record because there are always going to be gaps, but if you look at the cage match profiles of these gentlemen, the earliest matches you can find, Lance Storm and Chris Jericho tag teaming in 1991. They came through in the same Canadian indie scene up in Calgary and so forth. They have worked something like 90 odd matches together. It'll be the career coming full circle. It makes a lot of sense. Lance Storm is a name that a lot of people will go, what? I mean, like on first reaction, but when you dig into it, it does make a lot of sense. Beautiful little piece of symmetry. However, I hope that Chris Jericho is not retiring for a long, long time, because that man is a diamond.
Well, yes, agreed. And when he does, he should absolutely transition into commentary, considering what he's been doing on Dynamite. But I believe Lance, as Chris Jericho's final opponent, could well be the perfect storm.
Anyway.
Should we move on to the Twitter questions rapidly?
Yeah, let's do it.
Don't forget you to send them to us at WhatCulture WWE on Twitter. First question today comes from the Wrestling Tweeter, who says, with WrestleMania going over 2 days and Triple H thinking this could be the way forward, do you think the other big four will go the same way? And can you see the B and C pay-per-views going this way too?
I really hope not, because that's too much. It's nice to have your one show a year where it's this big, wacky, multi-day extravaganza, but if you're doing it more than once, oh my god, you're going to burn people the hell out. However, it's WWE, and if they do the 2-day WrestleMania in a stadium and it makes them loads of money, they will absolutely look at doing it for other events as well. You could see a 2-night Royal Rumble, women's match on one night, men's match on the other. I can see them doing it, but I do not want them to do it. No, just WrestleMania. Only WrestleMania, please.
Exactly. WrestleMania is a whole different kettle of fish. It is the Super Bowl of wrestling, of course, and it just would make more sense considering, the prestige of it all, how many matches and how many people they always try and cram onto it. And as you said, when we were there last year, it was a great show, but it just was so long.
Yeah.
And I think, big four pay-per-views have a tendency to run long, but, you can handle a 4-hour SummerSlam or a 4-hour Survivor Series. But if you couple that with NXT takeovers and the like that you would normally have over those weekends, whether or not that may change going forward, of course, who knows? It's just overkill, like you say.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Once a year is enough. Yeah, and definitely don't make the B&C pay-per-views go that way. I'm good for a 2-day Great Balls of Fire, thanks.
Brother.
Second question today comes from Ernesto Gonzalez, who says, do you think that WWE is giving Seth Rollins the title shot because Kevin Owens decided to stay home because of the ongoing global situation, shall we say?
Not necessarily. Maybe there's an element of that, but Kevin Owens, I think it comes down to simplicity. Kevin Owens is a face, Drew McIntyre is a face. It makes more sense to put a heel like Seth Rollins in that spot. I agree that it's an unideal situation because Seth lost to Kevin Owens at WrestleMania, but WWE don't operate under that kind of wins and loss framework that other promotions maybe do. So I think it's a little bit simpler. I don't think that they went, Kevin Owens is staying at home, we need to get someone else instead.
Yeah, it would have been a tough first feud regardless if it had been Owens versus Drew, just because you want it to be, not as blatantly obvious as Baron Corbin versus Seth Rollins when Seth became champion, but you want a very obvious heel-face dynamic. The fans know who they should cheer, know who should they boo, even though there's no one there to cheer or boo, of course. And yeah, I'm going to give WWE credit here. Yes, it doesn't make a jot of sense that Seth lost and yet is high enough in the rankings, not that they have them, to qualify for a World Championship match. But WWE worked around this very well by having Drew challenge Seth. It wasn't that Seth said, I want a title shot, and Drew went, all right then. Seth did something so heinous in stomping Drew's face into the mat a couple of times after he had a championship match against Andrade, I do believe, that, he demanded the match against Seth. So I quite like the way WWE worked around that, and I think it makes the most logical sense. I think Seth should go away for a month or so and have the return of the Messiah after losing this, hopefully. Right, final question today comes from Casso, who says, do you think with these times of the global situation at hand that WWE is going to make every pay-per-view main event be a cinematic match?
Ooh, yeah, I mean, there's a good chance. If they have the opportunity to create content that they might not necessarily do, the kinds of which they can kind of experiment and mess around with, I think they should do it this time. It's watching 10 straight up wrestling matches in an empty arena that are just wrestling is very tough. So I'm all for them kind of breaking it up, and I do think they will keep doing it going forward.
I sense there's going to be a cinematic match at most pay-per-views as things stand, just to break it up a little bit. The only difficulty I think you have is when you come back to the normality of wrestling following that, because the main event of Drew versus Brock was great, but it felt so weird trying to come back to it after the Firefly Funhouse. Obviously, the first night of the Boneyard match sort of finished everything off. But, I like it, and I like it as a way to change things up. But I just hope, like we said earlier on, WWE doesn't just sort of go into overkill on this.
Yeah, man.
Right, let us know your thoughts on all of that in the comments section below, and we'll move on to today's. And finally, I've already forgotten how to pronounce this guy's name. Cluid?
Jason.
Cluid Creative on Twitter. Jason will stick up his Twitter handle so you can go and follow him. He's been making some great stuff. He's the guy who made all those Funko Pops of everyone here at WhatCulture look fantastic. And he has made today's and finally with the thing that we normally finish the news off with. Andy H. Murray, I should say even. What does the H stand for? Well, you can now apparently get a t-shirt with all of them on. My eyes aren't good enough. The H stands for Heath the Champion, Happy Valentine's Day, Hamflet, Michael Hamflet, Hugging Post-coitally with Cody. There's a whole host of them on there. This is spectacular, Andy.
It's great stuff, man. And it's very helpful for me as well, because I can never remember what ones I've done and what ones I haven't used. And there's only so many appropriate words that begin with the letter H. So thank you once again, Jason. You're a gem.
Cluid Creative. I'm going to stick with that. Go and follow him on Twitter and give him your praise and thanks and what have you. And let us know your thoughts on everything in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Myself and the Dadley Boys discussing some burning wrestling issues later on today. And make sure you join the three of us at 4 p.m. live here on YouTube to preview Monday Night Raw and discuss any breaking news that we have around that time as well, and answer all your questions too. But for now, you can follow us all on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. You can follow Andy at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Hip Hop Hippo.
Hang on, let me check. There's too many names. There's too much stuff written there. I have no idea if you've said that before. You can follow me at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE, as I said. But for now, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thanks to you for watching, and we will see you soon.